morning. So yesterday we spoke about employee versus contractor from the employee's perspective and when they might want to be an employee rather than be a contractor or vice versa. Okay. Today we're going to go from the employer's perspective. Okay. So there's 4 questions that you need to ask yourself when you are determining whether somebody is an employee or a contractor. Okay. Question number 1, does the employee provide their own tools to do the work? Okay. If they do, that sounds more like a contractor than an employee, but not necessarily. Question number 2, who decides when that person's going to go to work? Essentially, how much control does the employee, and I'm going to keep referring to that person as the employee, not necessarily because they're employee, but employee and contractor, okay? Do they get to determine when they go to work? And if they miss a day, or if they decide to not go to work that day for whatever reason, are they going to be fired? Question number 3, can the business survive without them? If that employee or contractor wasn't part of the business, could that business actually continue to operate? And if it can continue to operate, then it sounds more like an employee, not a contractor. Okay. And the 4th question is, does that employee or contractor have a chance to lose money? Now, we can always argue this one way or the other, because you always got to get to work. There's always expenses involved in that. If they don't get paid, then they could potentially lose money. Okay, so that one we can always argue. But the 2 main ones, who decides when they go to work and who's providing the tools to do the job, those are the main ones that you're going to look at. And it doesn't really matter what I think or what the business owner thinks. What matters is perception from the governments. And I say governments because we're not only dealing with the CRA here, okay, and taxes, because the employer, if they have a subcontractor and the CRA deems that employer that person to be actually an employee, the employer's got to go back and pay a portion of their CPP and EI. I think for the last 2 years, I believe the rule is, which isn't good, and you can't go after the employee for that. It's not up to them. Not to mention penalties and interest. And if you don't have any other employees, then you got T4 penalties and interest. It's a really nasty situation. We had a client years ago that got slapped with about $70 or $75,000 worth of penalties when it came to this stuff. And we were warning against that same situation for years with this client, and they kept saying, well, they have a contract, their people are contractors. And that just proved to us that, it doesn't matter if you have a contract in place. What matters is reality. So just be careful, keep that in mind. Having employees is not that difficult, and it's not that much more expensive than having a subcontractor. It really isn't. Subcontractors, like, people say, well, I don't need WCB for the. Yes, you do. You have to have WCB for subcontractors. If they don't cover themselves, you have to cover them. So I mentioned governments. Okay, so we have to worry about the governments, and we're not talking just CRA. We're also talking in the Alberta government, because the Alberta government worries about labor standards. So in that same situation, we had 5 out of the 6 guys were deemed to be employees by the CRA. 6 out of the 6 guys were deemed to be employees by Alberta labor standards. And one government doesn't care what the other government says. Didn't matter how much we argued to get that one person not an employee. The Alberta just said, no, that's not the way it is. Just be careful. If you're unsure, talk to your accountant. Because everybody's situation is different, okay? But if you're unsure, talk to your accountant. If you're still really unsure after that conversation, or if your accountant can't really give you a definitive answer, which, by the way, there's never such thing as a definitive answer when it comes to dealing with the government, what I would do is default to an employee. Okay, that is the safest route, and it's not going to cost you a whole lot of extra money. So I hope that helps everybody. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your friends, and be well.